The presence of Islam in Brussels is constantly evolving. The first embryo of organized Islam dates back to the end of the 1950s. A few practicing students, more committed to pan-Islamism than to the pan-Arabist ideology in force at the time, were joined by a core of Albanian converts and refugees and created a committee. This committee has been the first step towards the future Islamic and Cultural Center of Brussels. In search of a suitable building for religious worship, they discovered the Oriental Pavilion, located in the Saint-Contenaire Park, which had been closed to the public for decades. Enthusiastic about the building, which looked like a mosque, the students submitted a request to the Minister of Justice in January 1962 to obtain the Oriental Pavilion for the Muslim community in Belgium. However, the request remained a dead letter as the building was considered a historical heritage site. On the 29th of May 1967, a few days after the fire that ravaged the Innovation department store in Brussels, King Faisal of Saudi Arabia paid an official visit to Belgium. Touched by the disaster, he cancelled the grand dinner he was planning to offer his guests and paid a large sum of money to the special fund to help the victims of the fire. In return, King Baudouin is said to have presented the Oriental Pavilion as a gift to the Muslim community of Belgium. As a token of Belgium's concession to the Muslim community, a ceremony was held at the Saudi Arabian embassy, during which the Belgian Minister of Justice symbolically handed the key to the Oriental Pavilion to King Faisal, protector of the holy places of Islam. To raise the necessary funds for the restoration of the building, it was deemed necessary to give official status to the Islamic Center. Statutes were drawn up and a General Assembly composed of ambassadors from countries with a Muslim majority elected the directors of the board. On the 13th of July 1969, the deed of concession of the building was signed, which was granted by emphyteutic lease for a period of 99 years. During the years when the Oriental Pavilion was being refurbished, the Imam Director, seconded and paid by Tunisia, worked hard to obtain recognition of the temporal goods of the Muslim faith. After various negotiations and proposals for a law, this was granted in 1974, thus opening the way to a series of advantages, the first of which was the organization of the Islamic religious education in the official school network. After the end of the works, on the 9th of May 1978, the center, which had benefited from the generosity of the Saudi ruling family for the renovation costs, was solemnly inaugurated by King Khaled of Saudi Arabia and King Baudouin. In 1980, a training institute for imams and preachers was established, dependent of the Supreme Council of Mosques. Various personalities from the Muslim world came to teach there and gave lectures. Its income being more than fluctuating, in 1982, the Islamic and Cultural Center was, at the request of the Imam Director, officially attached to the World Islamic League, whose headquarters are in Mecca. Thanks to its more formal link with the Islamic League, an international organization that is in fact under Saudi tutelage, the Board of Directors of the Islamic and Cultural Center now includes 3 representatives of this international association. The Islamic and Cultural Center is the real transnational mosque of the Brussels metropolitan area. Recently, its management was transferred to the representative body of Islam, the Executive of the Muslims of Belgium.
In the meantime, and since the early 1960s, working-class immigrants of Moroccan and later of Turkish origin settled in Brussels. Prayer, which can be performed in any place as long as it's free of dirt, was at that time performed in people's home. Belgium was quick to encourage family migration, and consequently religious infrastructures had to be created to show children the way. The purchase of a building and its conversion into a place of worship gave the believers the feeling that they had fulfilled a duty to God by leaving a religious legacy to the young people. In Brussels, the very first prayer room, initiated by Moroccan immigrants, was built in 1972 in Rue de Russie in Saint-Gilles. Others followed, such as the Muhajiroun Mosque in Ixelles, Jafar on Boulevard Le Monnier, Al-Azhar on Rue de Botanique in Saint-Jos, Al-Allah near the Schaerbeek train station, and the two Albanian mosques in Schaerbeek. And Noor was the first mosque whose building was bought in 1975. The increase in the number of places of prayer was a consequence not only of the growing Muslim population, but also of divisions within the mosque due to disagreements in the management committees. As far as Molenbeek is concerned, divergences in Al-Mustaqbal, the oldest mosque in the municipality, gave birth to Al-Muslimin and Hamza. Other conflicts led to the creation of Al-Muttaqin and Al-Imran. It soon became clear that there was a need for permanent imam who could devote all his time to the office, even more so because it was necessary to teach children to read the sacred book and instruct them in foundations of the faith. The economic crisis and the transition from an active life to unemployment initiated a process of return to a more assiduous religious practice. Apart from the prayer room and ablution rooms, most mosques set up classrooms. Turkish mosques also have a room where worshippers can talk and have a drink. During the month of Ramadan, it is customary for the mosque to serve meals to those in need, to people without families, and to socially isolated students. In 1982, the Turkish Religious Foundation was established in Brussels as an international association with statuses comparable to those of the Islamic and Cultural Center. The foundation, which is dependent on the Directorate of Religious Affairs in Turkey, manages the real estate assets of the local Turkish communities and appoints imams, dispatched and paid by the foundation, to these communities. In Brussels, two mosques are affiliated to the foundation, the Anderlecht Mosque and the Schaerbeek Mosque. Brussels has 63 established mosques, well known but not necessarily recognized. Among them, at the moment I am working on this report, December 2020, 21 have been recognized by the Belgian authorities, 1 on 3. Most of the 63 mosques are Moroccan. But unlike Turkey, Morocco has never managed to set up a large overarching structure. However, to maintain a certain degree of control, there is the Rassemblement des Musulmans de Belgique, the European Council of Moroccan Ulemas, and the Council of the Moroccan Community Abroad. Alongside Turkish, Moroccan, and Albanian places of worship, other communities such as Sunni and Shia, Pakistanis, and Africans opened their own mosques over time. Both Arabic and Turkish-speaking religious brotherhoods were established in Brussels. On the Turkish side, there was a long-lost Naqshbandi room in Schaerbeek, and there was also a Nurcu boarding school where young people found a place where they could study in peace and receive homework support and religious training in accordance with the precepts of the mystical way. The Süleymanci, another Turkish brotherhood, bought an imposing building behind Tour Taxi. Some Moroccans adhering to the Tijaniya, Derqawiya, and Isawa Sufi ways assemble to recite prayers, but the two most organized branches are the Alawiya Brotherhood, which for many years had a Zawiya in Saint-Gilles, and the Bouchishiya Brotherhood in Laken. These two mystical tendencies attracted a number of converts to the spirituality and fraternity that they offer. In the meantime, pietist and politico-religious tendencies also found their way to Brussels. During the 1970s and 1980s, the Tabligh movement, which was founded in India to bring predominantly illiterate believers back to religious practice established itself in Brussels. Favoring the example of good conduct over discourse, the bulk of its activity centered on reorganizing the lives of the followers around a strict observance of religious precepts, modeled on the behavior of the Prophet. The local preachers were joined by missionaries on tour from other countries and easily recognizable by their turbans with two tails falling down their backs. They walked the streets to spread the word and did not hesitate to enter the cafes to bring the lost sheep back to the mosque. Even if the movement was strictly pietistic, by its rigorism it became the breeding ground for a mobilization towards social and politico-religious action. As younger generations became better educated, the Tabligh movement gradually lost its role as an initiator of faith. What happens in the global world has its impact on Brussels. From the beginning in the 1980s, Iranians and Saudis engaged in merciless struggle to extend their respective spheres of influence in the West. At the end of the 1980s and the beginning of the 1990s, Shiite ideological groups tried to take over the management committees of several Brussels mosques. A few hundred Moroccan immigrants embraced Shiism and initially frequented the Azeri Mosque in Rue Génard in Molenbeek before the opening of Reda Mosque in Anderlecht. But also Muslim Brotherhood entered Brussels. The first organization of Muslim Brotherhood ideology in Brussels was the Humanitarian Association for the Promotion of Youth, created in 1988 and located in Saint-Jos. They met in the premises of the Turkish Milli Gurus, which is ideologically closed. Another branch of the Muslim Brotherhood, called the Islamic Intercultural League, took possession of a building in Saint-Gilles. They frequently organized conference cycles, sometimes in large university rooms put at their disposal, with speakers from all over Europe and even beyond. Various mosques have been or are under their influence. In 1985, the Islamic Mutual Aid League, Ligue d'Entraide Islamique, whose active members were mainly students or ex-students moving in the ideological circles of the Muslim Brotherhood, created the Khalil Mosque in Molenbeek, which has become the largest and most important Muslim place of worship in the Brussels metropolitan area, certainly since the management of the Islamic and Cultural Center was transferred to the executive of the Muslims of Belgium. A third movement with a missionary connotation after the Tabligh and the Muslim Brotherhood is that of Salafism with its corollary Wahhabism, which developed mainly from the 1990s onwards. Salafism claims a return to the origin of Islam based on the Quran and the prophetic tradition, and rejects the interpretations founded by legal schools. Like the Tablighi, they aim to imitate the Prophet in everything, including the way in which they dress and eat. Young people of immigrant origin and converts who studied at the University of Medina on scholarships become, upon their return, the propagators of this doctrine. Not very popular with the first generation, Salafism became established in some mosques and associations such as the Imam al-Bukhari Center, created in 1999, the Youth Gardens, Jardin des Jeunes, and the Al-Furqan Center, founded in 2003.
What happens over the last 60 years is that we are witnessing in Brussels the gradual constitution of an urban Islamic space, the central hub of which is the mosque or the prayer room. The first shops to be established were butcher shops that met the growing demand for ritually slaughtered meat. The slaughterhouse of Anderlecht has days on which chains are reserved for ritual slaughter, and during Eid el-Kabir, various solutions have been put into practice to meet the high demand and to deal with the waste. They were followed by the opening of bakeries selling products that are certified free from prohibited substances. During Ramadan and religious festivals, These bakeries offer a wide range of traditional cakes. Cafes serving only non-alcoholic drinks gave the men the chance to spend time together, meet friends, and even do business. A more careful observance of the religious precepts concerning halal food paved the way for the setting up of a variety of shops, some of which became supermarkets or even real chains with branches in different areas. By now, the level of education had become much higher than that of the first immigrants, and the eagerness to perfect one's religious knowledge led to the opening of several bookshops. In addition to books on the foundations of Islam and their interpretation, the bookshops also sell children's books, prayer clothes, prayer mats, watches indicating prayer times, and traditional non-alcoholic scents. Travel agencies offer all-inclusive travel and accommodation during the pilgrimage. Ritual cleanliness being an obligation for prayer, neighborhoods with a strong Muslim presence have one or more hammams, frequented by believers who do not have the necessary amenities at home, but also by steam bath aficionados. Another initiative is the organization of Muslim denominational education. The first such primary school was Al-Ghazali, founded in 1989. Since then, other structures have sprung up. At the beginning of the migration phase, this is in the 1960s and 1970s, nationals of Muslim countries were mainly confronted with accidental deaths, and fundraising could usually cover the costs of repatriation. The aging of the Muslim population and its increasing heterogeneity have led to an increased desire to be buried closer to loved ones. Private cemeteries being prohibited by law, a first Muslim religious plot was created within the Schaerbeek Cemetery, next to the Brussels Cemetery. So far, the history of 60 years of development of Islam in Brussels until 2020.